Hi, thanks for tuning in to Dan Warner Media. My name is Dan Warner. Today we're going to be talking about attitude, and this is one of the most important things to have as an actor. And when I say have, I mean have a good one, because a lot of people in general have not so good attitudes. And I will tell you, in this particular career path that we've chosen, it's pretty easy to get a bad attitude from time to time. Our job is filled with rejection. Our job is filled with doubt. Our job is filled with so much uncertainty that, it's pretty easy, and I'm guilty of it as well, of having a bad attitude from time to time. But I will tell you that not only does it not serve you, and, I know this is probably common sense, but it's actually super detrimental to your well-being. First of all, the fact that if you have a bad attitude, it's going to show on your auditions, on your self-tapes. There's nothing good comes of it. So I want to tell you a couple of stories about having a bad attitude and why it's important to not have one. I was in an audition one time for Domino's Pizza commercial, and this was a couple of years ago, so we were in the room, and I was in Santa Monica. It was probably about 4:30 at night, or in the evening. So in Los Angeles, traffic's going to be bad after 4 o'clock. Everybody knows that. We all know that. Everybody who lives here, even people who don't live here, know that the traffic is bad at 5 o'clock. So we're in this audition. I am auditioning for a FBI agent, sort of a kind of a SWAT team guy. And we're going to be coming out of a van and delivering a pizza. There was some other nonsense that went on. Anyhow, so there's a guy standing there, and I'm sort of milling around. I'm not sitting down. I'm walking around. I'm just killing some time because it was taking a long time. And I started talking to this one guy that I knew, and this other guy came up, and he looked, oh my God, if there was a SWAT team magazine, he would be on the cover of it. He looked so much like a SWAT team guy. Had the haircut, had the, fatigues, had everything. And he's standing there, and I'm thinking, and this is what happens in your mind, you go down the worst case scenario rabbit hole a lot of times. I'm looking at this guy going, oh, well, he's going to get this. Now they were hiring several of us. I think there was going to be at least three of us. And I'm looking at this guy going, well, he's certainly going to be one of them, because he looks exactly like a SWAT team guy. He was tall, handsome, like I said, haircut, the whole thing. So I'm looking at this going, well, now there's 2 slots available, because, he's going to get one of them. And as we're talking, he starts chiming in, and he starts complaining about how long it's taking and all of these things. And, I'm not big on sitting around listening to people complain in the waiting room, especially, you're auditioning for a commercial, which could net you a lot of money and change the trajectory of your life. Some of them are that important. And so he's standing there and he starts complaining about how long it's taking. And, yeah, it's taking that long, but, what else do you have to do? Like, if you're an actor and you have to wait for casting, then you wait. Like, that's what you do. But he's complaining about it. And then I was getting ready to walk away. And the thing that really sold it for me in leaving this conversation was, he goes, yeah, I live way down in Orange County, and man, I should probably just take off. He goes, I never book these things anyway. Those words actually came out of his mouth. I never book these things anyway. And I walked away and I thought, yeah, that's right. You're not going to book it, because you don't book these things anyway. You know who books these things? I do. I book these things. I thought all of that to myself. I said it to myself. But I'm thinking, I'm going to book this. He's not going to book this. This whiny little bitch is like, oh, yeah, I never book these things. Well, then go home. Well, a couple days later, I booked the job. When I got on set, he was nowhere to be found. So I don't know if he was maybe just a bad actor, but I can tell you this. I didn't see him in the room, but his attitude was awful. I don't book these things anyway. Well, of course you don't. Not with that attitude. I had another audition a couple of years ago, and it was for a Microsoft job. And it was going to be really quite difficult because we had to sort of come up with our own character, and there was going to be a lot of improv. And so I sat down and I created this character who's going to be a coach. And I created this character, and I sort of gave him a weird voice, and it was a long, drawn-out process. But I worked on it really hard, and I worked on it for I think a couple of days. So then I go to the audition, and I walk in the room, and it's straight to callbacks. And so if you've never been to one of these before, there's about 8 or 10 people sitting around the room. You've got ad agency people, you've got the client. You've got the casting people, you've got the director, and they all are in their laptops. And so all they're doing is looking at their laptops. And then they'll look up from time to time, oh, yeah, and then they're back in their laptops. And it seems like they're not even watching you. It seems like, why am I doing this? They're not even watching me. So I go in the room, and so the lights are bright on me, but the room is dark. And so I can't really see them. It's just sort of a black room from where I'm standing on the stage on my mark. And they said action, and I just went for it. I just launched into this character, this coach, and I'm wearing these funky like 70s shorts and a shirt that's too tight and a whistle. And anyway, I go on and on and on. And my background is in stand-up comedy. And so I feel like I'm pretty funny from time to time. And I wrote some really funny stuff for this. And I'm giving it everything. I mean, I'm laying it all out. And I don't hear a peep. Nothing. You could have heard a pin drop. And so about halfway through, I'm thinking, God, I'm not getting any laughs. And so now immediately I'm in my head. Wrong thing to do. But I keep pushing through it. And I finish sort of with this, ta-da. And I'm like, and I finished, and a guy looks up from his laptop and he goes, thank you. That was it. Thank you. And I was like, oh, okay. And I was like, I don't know what just happened. That was maybe the worst audition ever because no one laughed. I gave it 120%. And I walk out of the room. And I hear from behind me in the parking lot, this guy go, hey, Dan. And I turn around, and it's this guy that I met years ago doing a short film. And his name is Ryan. And Ryan says, hey, man, you were great. And I said, oh. He goes, yeah, I was in the room. And I couldn't see him. It was dark. And I said, oh. He goes, yeah, I wrote some of these spots for Microsoft. We're going to do about 5 of them. And I said, oh. He goes, you were hilarious. And I thought, how would you know, man, if someone didn't come out and tell me, and he was a friend of mine, or I'd met him, years ago, and he goes, hey, I just came out to tell you, great job. I don't know if you'll get it or not, but we're going to discuss it, but thumbs up. So he goes back in, and I thought, I mean, I could not have been more off on my thought process and my attitude after that. I was like, well, this was ridiculous. I did all this work, and no one cares. It was awful, but it turns out it wasn't awful. It was very funny. They all liked it. But they're used to seeing people do stuff over and over and over again, and they're not going to just laugh every time. And so these are things that you learn over time. And I ended up booking the job, and we shot 5 spots, and then I think 6 months later we shot more spots. I think I made close to like $30,000 on that particular job. But my attitude was awful because when I finished, I was like, what was that? And I thought I did horrible. So, you know, when you worry about stuff, and if that guy hadn't come out, I would have gone home thinking, yeah, well, that was a giant waste of time. But when you have a bad attitude and when you worry about stuff, like when you do an audition and you send it in and you think you did pretty good and you don't hear back, and you start thinking, oh, well, I don't know, this is just not working for me. Listen, you never know what they think of your audition because they don't give you feedback, and that's another difficult thing in our profession. But you just have to continue to do your best and then forget about it. Just forget about it. Move on to something else. Move on to something, you know, find something to do that's creative that will help you and get a couple of projects going so you can dive into the other projects and occupy your time so you're not sitting around thinking, gosh, what is this? This isn't going to work for me. I don't know what's going on here. You know, worrying about stuff is such a waste of time, and here's why. Because most of the time, the things you worry about never happen. And so if you worry about them and they don't happen, the bad thing you were worried about, you had to live through it at least once because you lived through it while you were worrying about it. If you worry about something and the bad thing does happen, then you lived through it twice because you lived through it when you worried about it and then you lived through it when it happened. So worrying is a giant waste of time, and it will crush your spirit. So stop worrying about stuff. Go out, you know, have a good attitude. You know, this guy, the Domino's pizza guy, you know, I never book these things. And, you know, having this bad attitude, it will crush you, and it will not help you move forward. And we all just want our ball to move forward. And so don't wait for something good to happen for you to have a good attitude. Have a good attitude anyway. You know, I haven't done it in about a year, but I'm going to start doing it again because it's a great thing to do. I had a win jar. I called it my wins jar. So whenever I had a win, whenever I had a big win, something that went well, if I booked a job or if I got a call back or, you know, something really great happened, I would write it down on a little Post-it note and I would write the date on it and I would put it in the jar. It was a pretty big jar. And so and anytime anything great happened, I write it down, oh, this is great. Bang, in the jar it goes. And so then maybe 6 months later when you're feeling horrible and you have a bad attitude and you think nothing is going right, the phone's not ringing, I'm not getting any auditions or I'm not booking anything, what I want you to do is I want you to take that jar and I want you to empty it out onto the table and read all the really great things that happened to you so far this year. And be grateful that you have this life and that you have accomplished things. And when you start reading there, you go, oh, yeah, what am I complaining about? Things are pretty good. So the win jar is super helpful. Listen, having a great attitude is not always easy to do, and sometimes it can prove difficult. But fight through it, look at your wins, reflect back on all the positive things that have happened to you, and snap out of it because it's not that bad. If this video was helpful, hit the like button. If you guys have any questions or comments about anything that I have covered thus far, leave them in the questions and comments section down below. Subscribe to my channel if you've not done so, and go have a really great day, because I'm going to, because I have a good attitude. Always. Well, I mean, a lot of the time. I mean, not always, but I try. I try really hard. I try.